The online guest with the identifier GAMINER, please put your name for the record in the chat. Hello, Gina. Thank you. Okay, I think we're good with the online attendees. And I ask, and it appears that everyone mute their mics, and appreciate if you would also mute your video, and if you're a member of the public, save your video until the last agenda item for public comments. And if you in the room, we have 3 guests, and welcome everybody. All right, so committee members were emailed meeting materials prior to the meeting, the review, and any meeting materials associated with this meeting will be updated to the EFCC website as soon as possible after the meeting. As for the chair comments, first comment I have is the Board of Forestry accepted my reappointment to the Emergency Fire Cost Committee on the January 3rd meeting, and I appreciate being able to continue to serve the committee and serve as chair. And the next item to touch on that is a hot topic for this committee is fire funding under House Bill 4133 that is currently in the legislature. Just some comments to the committee members. If you aren't aware, it has traveled a tumultuous path with lots of twists and turns, and you know, both within the legislature and frankly not helped by some press that I think wrongly conveyed the scope of the committee that Senator Steiner put together, and also how the deal that is ultimately written as legislation was brought forward. Unfortunately, you know, my representation on that committee as the chair of the Emergency Costs Committee I saw a committee made of multiple stakeholders who all operated in good faith and with a lot of collaboration to come up with a solution. It was not driven by one interest or another. And ultimately, I think the legislation that's before that is currently in the Capital Construction Subcommittee of Ways and Means is a good bill, a bill that will help districts have stable funding in the future, a bill that recognizes the need to change our cost structure. And frankly, I hope that it gets the support, the bipartisan, bicameral support it needs in order to pass. If you weren't aware, it did receive a support letter from Governor Kotek, which I think is helpful and also recognizes the support that it has for addressing the fire financing problem that has been a sticky wicket for several decades. I'm not going to get into the details of the bill. You can find that on OLIS, and I will say I remain hopeful and optimistic that it can pass, but nothing is certain till sine die. So we'll see. All right, let's move to agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes for January 2nd, 2024 EFCC meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as emailed?
I'll move to approve the minutes as written.
And a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are none opposed. The motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to agenda item number 3, the financial status of the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund. Ms. Hobbs, can you please provide the committee a financial report?
Good morning. For the record, Lorna Hobbs, EFCC Finance Coordinator. My report today covers the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund's current fiscal year actual revenues and expenditures through January 31st, 2024, and projected revenues and expenditures through the end of the fiscal year. The beginning balance on July 1st, 2023 was $12,029,626. Under item number 1, under revenues assessments, we've been made aware of an issue with the direct bill system at ODF for county assessment revenues. A correction's being made currently, and I will get correct assessment amounts on my next report to you in June. I can update this report if you would like, once I have those updated revenues, and send those to you.
Yes, please.
I will do that. Item number 2, harvest taxes. The revenues to date total $1,088,757. And there are 2 remaining payments. One was made in February and the next will be in May, and those will be reflected on my next report in June. The current amount of interest received is $256,528. The interest rate again rose in February from 5% to 5.2%. And total revenue as of January 31st is $10,651,192, which will likely change once I update those assessment revenues. Expenditures for FY24, payroll and operating expenses still estimated at $185,000 for the fiscal year. The fund's contribution of $3 million for fiscal year 24 severity costs was paid in January. And number 3 under expenditures is the reallocation of the $100,873 we received from CFPA for the balance they owed on their advance for fire season 2018. For fire season 2023 claims, the current net total is estimated at $35,705,177. A total of $10 million was transferred to ODF for fire season 2023 in the form of advances or loans to Coos Forest Protective Association and Douglas Forest Protective Association. Total expenditures to date total $13,100,873, which includes that transfer from CFPA. The fund balance as of January 31st was $9,579,944. And estimated balance on June 30th is $10,691,859. And that is the end of my report, unless you have questions.
So that estimated fund balance also has the asterisk next to it of some adjustments due to
Correct.
the county assessments coming to, yeah. Okay, correct.
Yes. So that will change.
All right. Any questions from committee members? None online. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We will await the correction. And I would appreciate it when that correction does come in, if you can send it out to the committee. Thank you. All right, let's move to agenda item number 4 regarding the insurance policy. Just as a quick background, this discussion topic does not need to be a decision, but we do have consistent with ORS 477.775, we need to touch base briefly on the topic. I'll start with my comments, and ultimately it's to not pursue a recommendation to the state forester for an insurance policy. My two rationale here is that, property insurance markets, which that insurance policy was linked to, have not improved due to natural disasters worldwide. And last year's indications with Lloyd's, they indicated they were not interested in working with the state on this policy. I do see that Mr. Scharf is online, and I would open it up if he has anything he would like to add to the discussion.
Brennan took the words right out of my mouth. Just a reminder that the hurdles have been and still are a very hard insurance market. And just a reminder that we lost the lead underwriter. There's been no indication of a new party stepping forward to fill that role. And even if there was, there's not a positive indication that we would be able to fill out enough insurers to cover the policy and the program. So nothing has changed in our view since last year. I think full disclosure and transparency, we have not reached out directly and confirmed that those things haven't changed, but it was a pretty strong set of feedback from last year. So Brennan, I'll turn it back to you. You were right in line with my comments as well.
Thank you, Todd. Any comments from committee members? Questions? Nope. I'm seeing some head nods. I appreciate the added context, Todd. And I think the indication from Lloyd's last year was, as you said, strong. And we recognize that insurance, that relationship was perhaps wounded a bit with the lack of continuing. It was the ultimate decision of this committee that just the cost benefit analysis of the insurance policy was starting to move outside of what made sense for this part of the relationship. And though you haven't reached out directly to Lloyd's, I think I don't want to prick a wound that may exist there. So with time, it may be an opportunity to rekindle those conversations if we feel that it's a worthwhile thing to look into. Any thoughts from ODF?
Chair Gerelts, members of the committee, for the record, Mike Shaw, Deputy State Forester. Maybe just a couple comments. Thanks for the conversation. It's in line with, as I understand it as well. And I'm covering for State Forester Mukamoto today, so we'll make sure that I take the conversation back to him with the recommendation from the committee that a catastrophic insurance policy not be sought. To your point, I don't know that there would be one out there if we were to go down that road, and the cost benefit analysis would be unique to say the least. So recommendation noted, and we'll pass that along to the State Forester.
Thank you. Okay, let's close that agenda item and move to item number 5. Mr. Ellis, can you provide a weather synopsis and a forecast? And for the record, where I was coming from Southern Oregon, we had 2 inches of snow.
Copy that. Chair Gerelts, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Blake Ellis. I serve as the Fire Operations Manager for the Protection Division. And you guys can see the notes, and that's the information that I have. El Nino continues in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. See here, warmest sea surface temperature anomalies in the Central Pacific Ocean. El Nino has been weakening in the past 2 months. Rapid weakening of the El Nino is forecasted to continue through March. Rapid transition to La Nina becoming increasingly likely by early summer, with forecasting at 55% of La Nina for June through August period. Don't ask me what that all means. Moving into drought conditions. Let's see here. As you can see, drought designations have shrunk over Western Oregon and Western Washington. However, we have seen in that same time some expansion of drought areas in Central and Northeastern Oregon. Primarily a little bit more expansion of the abnormally dry, as well as the moderate drought indicators. March, neutral for temps, slight chance for better than normal precip for the lower 2/3 of the state. March through May, increased chance for above normal temperatures across the state, increased chance of below normal precip for most of the state. So, you know, as we head into March and May, we're going to see below average precip and a little bit warmer temperatures than we typically would see. Thank you. Looking at our significant fire potential, basically what this is saying is it's on track for our normal fire seasons as we head into it, right? You know, we see the Southwest region, and I'm talking Arizona and New Mexico, starting to heat up a little bit this month, followed by the Great Lakes region, and then continued above normal in the Panhandle country, where we currently have firefighters helping out the state of Texas. Continuing on into early June, again, increased fire potential down in the Southwest region, as well as Hawaii. And then moving into July, again, just that remaining increased fire potential in the Southwest, Hawaii, and you know, below or normal fire conditions in the Pacific Northwest region, minimal or low risk until late July for large fires across the state of Oregon. And then Oregon's complete and coordinated fire protection system. Thank you.
Thank you. I looked at Chris and Eric, got a note that my mic was fading in and out, so I've switched mics. Is this better?
Seems better.
Okay, thank you. Blake, I appreciate the update. You know, one of the things that I see as it relates to this committee and the work that we do is noting that the seasonal temperature outlook for March, April, and May in the Pacific Northwest is well above. We're getting that strong red color, which is always a concern. While that might make for a nice spring, the fuels conditions moving into fire season are really what I start to get worried about. Same with the potential lack of moisture during that time. Let's just hope that it doesn't come to pass quite as strong of an indicator as they're telling us.
Yeah, and I agree. And for, you know, reference, as a fire supervisor out in the field prior to promoting into this position, you know, personally, I always looked at the month of May to kind of get a bearing on, you know, what that fuel condition is going to look like, what those temperatures are looking like, how much of a drying impact is that going to have on our, you know, medium to larger sized fuels. And then with the added precip and a quick warm up, you're also going to have an abundance of 1 hour fuels, those light flashy fuels to carry fires, right? So definitely something that we are going to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, thank you. That'll be an important message to convey to the people on the ground. In addition to hopefully some strong public facing from ODF and others to get those service announcements out to the public, recognizing that the vast majority of fires are started by the public, that they're responsible out there come June and July. Never a weather report that I love seeing, but it is what it is. So thank you for that. Let's move to agenda item number 6, an update on the status of large fire cost collections. Welcome. Mr. Narns, can you please give us an update? Welcome to your first solo meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gertz and members of the committee. For the record, Kyle Nairns. I'm the brand new cost collection specialist for the Oregon Department of Forestry. So on the first page of the spreadsheet that you guys received, you'll see those first 3 highlighted in green. Those are new from the previous report. The first one on there, the East Evans fire. It's not a new fire. It's one that had been on there in the past, but had just been omitted last time. So we are receiving restitution payments on that fire. The other 2, West Campbell and Longview, those were new demands that have went out since the last meeting. So hoping to hear back soon on this. We do have multiple other cases kind of between the investigation and cost collection stage where we're in contact with responsible parties, lawyers, or insurance companies. I'm just kind of working through the next step forwards on those. So hopefully we'll hear from a few of those by next meeting. Other fires on the first page that do show partial payment, those are ones that are on a payment plan for us. So as of this meeting from the last, we received just under $3,600 in those smaller payments. But we will be working here in the future with revenue to update that list. We do have a few that have fallen off the list for payment plans that have ceased to pay. So we'll be working to get those back up and running and identify which ones those are. We did receive 3 larger payments. One actually just came in yesterday. Those 3 on the next page, 12-mile Dace Copy and Fielder Creek, all $300,000 payments. So glad to see that those came in, and we'll be closing those up and getting those funds distributed. The other 4, just older cases that we had to close for a variety of reasons. Didn't collect on those ones, but kind of ran out of options for moving forward. So that's why you'll see those other 4 removed from the list. And then the next section there, just the open investigations, although not all inclusive, just kind of some of the big important ones we've got moving through the process, and each of them has a status next to them as a general update. Other than what's in there, we'll kind of keep it at those just to protect the integrity of the cases we move forward through those. So that is end of report, unless there are questions.
I don't have any questions, committee members. It's a good report. Thank you. It's always important to keep the committee informed on the progress for these. So thank you. All right, agenda item number 7. So determining the unencumbered balance of the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund as of February 16th. This is a decision item the committee will address, and I look to Ms. Hirsch, the committee administrator, to give a report.
All right, good morning. Nancy Hirsch, the Emergency Fire Cost Committee Administrator. And consistent with law, Oregon Revised Statute 477.760 requires the Emergency Fire Cost Committee to determine if the unencumbered balance of the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund as of February 16th exceeds the reserve base of $22.5 million. So consistent with that statute, you shall meet and determine the balance of the fund. And also consistent with your administrative rules, the unencumbered fund balance has been calculated in the handout prepared for you. The cash balance on February 16th was $9,738,820.51. The calculation reflects a reduction of $93,888.61 in administrative expenses not yet paid through February 16th. And there were no other adjustments necessary. So that results and an unencumbered fund balance of $9,644,931.90. So the amount is well below the $22.5 million reserve base, which means the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund assessments will continue consistent with law. And I recommend the committee certify the balance as presented.
Any discussion from committee members? Okay. I look for a motion to recommend the committee certify the unencumbered balance of the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund as presented by the committee administrator.
I'll move. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, I move to approve the unencumbered balance as presented for February 16, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, all those in favor, vote with aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. All right, that closes agenda item number 7. And let us move to agenda item number 8. The agency and administrative branch report. Mr. Shaw, can you please provide a good statewide update and delegate as you see fit? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Geraltz, members of the committee. Again, for the record, Mike Shaw, covering for State Forester Mukomoto. Apologies, he could not be with you today. This is a fairly busy week, as we have articulated. Last week of the short session, and also a Board of Forestry meeting that's coming up in the next couple of days, in which the HCP will be a topic of conversation that has taken a fair amount of his time. So it's really a pleasure to be here. Just a couple comments before turning it over to staff. You mentioned, and I just referenced the House Bill 4133 in the legislative session. That continues to evolve at a very rapid rate on an hourly basis. That's taken a fair amount of time. And at this point, we're waiting to see where that ends. And as an agency, we don't know exactly where it's going to end or if it's going to end. And there will be significant changes, at least as they're identified right now, with how the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund and EFCC operates. But from the agency's perspective, I can tell you that the agency looks forward to the continued strong partnership with the EFCC in whatever role that is. It's a critical partnership that we have had for a very long time, and the agency really looks forward to continuing that partnership into the future. There's a variety of really expert people here to give you some updates on a variety of things, including fire season preparations and all the work that is going on. It's always really interesting as we hear a weather update in the beginning of March for what fire season might look like. It seems like it's a long ways out, and then all of a sudden we snap our fingers and we're chasing fires. And so the work that staff is doing right now to prepare and take care of all of the things that we learned from last season and move into a better condition for fire season 2024 is some of the stuff that you're going to hear today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Mr. Short on the financial side of the equation.
Thank you, Mike. For the record, my name is James Short. I'm the agency chief financial officer. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak before the committee today. Chair Geraltz, appreciate it. So I have most of the items on here for agency administration. Tracy Rolson would normally provide some, but he is out of training today. So I have most of those. So for the financial update, as of March or February 14th, the agency had a combined cash flow, including the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund balance of $43.5 million, broken out into 33.1 for the agency's main cash account and 9.7 for the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund at that time. In addition, the agency had at this reporting date has a $12 million general fund availability, and for total operating reserves for the agency right now includes, would be $55 million as of February 14th, the date of my report that I submitted. Currently, outstanding on our accounts receivable is roughly $12 million due from FEMA on the PAA side of it, and which is majority of that are due from Oregon Department of Emergency Services. So we're working through that to get those cleaned up. We should roughly have $10 million of that to ODF by the end of next month or two. So they have moved their resources to the ice storm that happened in January. So they have been slowing down on their processing right now of claims. So that has taken their all of their staffing to work on that. So unfortunately, they do have the money. They just need to get it audited and sent to us. So FEMA right now we've have $461,000 billed out to them for FMEG, and hopefully we'll see those in shortly on that also. Outstanding AP and short-term liabilities is roughly at $2.2 million. And the agency made a large payment to DAS for risk management and other state government service charges in January of roughly about $10 million. That was for the year. That, yeah, those are big outflow of cash for month of January. So I'll move over, oh, shoot, one information item. The agency in January received a $12 million advance for the fire season 2021 insurance claim. So we have that $12 million received, working with the insurance and the adjusters and cost collection side of it for the remainder amounts in the next year. We've paused for right now until more items get cleaned up and through cost shares and through cost collection, and we'll revisit this after the fire season. So the 12 million came in and went back out to DAS pretty quick. So, and a report on the financial update. I'll move to, let's go strategic investments. The remaining project money, these are notes from Tracy Rolson that are tied to the 2017, have not been all spent as of the last report. This will be the last report on these dollars. The 2020 investment status from the field located at the bottom of the handout that was provided shows that we have roughly $913,000 roughly to spend for those strategic investments from 2020. On that. And so for our severity update, the agency on January 5th transferred the $3 million for the Oregon Forest Land Protection Fund share to the agency. That's for the fire seasons of 2023 severity program. The agency is in the process of waiting from the legislative session to get their share matched at that time and that should be roughly, I believe it's is $6.5 million, I believe, at this time. I can't read the paperwork. I got mine on and I can't read it. Yeah, I'll do that. And FEMA update. So per the notes here from Tracy, we're getting close to completing through fire season 2022 on all FEMA PA claims. Besides this past fire season's golden incident, our balance left to reconcile and send as part to FEMA for claims roughly about 1.5 million. Of that, 1.2 million is tied to 2 cost shares, Beachy Creek and Holiday Farm, which the invoices were just received from the U.S. Forest Services and are paid by ODF. Staff is getting these wrapped up pretty quick, which will get all of our suppression claims from the past sent to FEMA OEM for their processes to be completed. The remainder of 300,000 is tied to admin claims, which the suppression needs to be fully submitted before those can get wrapped up. And so hopefully the big item is OEM, and hopefully we can get those resolved here in the next month or two. So great work by staff to get our FEMA and items all submitted. And a report for all those items. We also have the ODF agency request budget status. Currently, we are in a wait and see mode on that. Normally, the agency would have worked with the Board of Forestry in January and at tomorrow's board meeting to review our policy option packages. But with the new governor and new direction from the governor's office, that the agency has not been able to sit down with the Board of Forestry and present our policy option packages and ledge concepts at this time. They are we have submitted them to DAS and the governor's office for approval and have not heard back from them yet. We are hopefully we'll hear back at the end of session. I've been told possibly by the end of March. So the agency is in a holding pattern right now, and we can't, and under a gag order for this information. So fortunately, would love to share those items with the committee, but we can't at this time. So this actually rushes the whole process for our budgeting. And, we have one more board meeting coming up where we have to submit our POPs, and the Board of Forestry approve our agency request budget, which would be due then in September 1st. You have a question, Brendan?
What are relative to the scope of this committee for fire? What are the ramifications of that new process?
So in general, the process is setting up an alignment between the agency request budget and the governor's budget. We will know they've changed, the governor's office and CFO's office has changed how the process will be moving forward through. So it's new to all of us on how we handle our request budget through up until the governor's budget is released. So we'll see how that plays out, but it affects all programs, not just fire, where we have a lot of different issues within the agency, from staffing to other items, even the facilities projects.
So moving into this coming fire season, I mean, I got a little lost, if I'm being honest, but I am somewhat aware of the background on this issue. Heading into this coming fire season, will this new process have influence on our ability for preparedness?
Not that I'm aware of, but we would be ready because we are currently operating in this current budgetary cycle. So we are fully funded for this budgetary cycle. It would be for the future 25, 27 budgetary process.
Okay. And that's what I just needed to hear confirmation of from you guys. So thank you.
Without any more questions, that's end of report from.
Comments or questions from the committee members?
Excuse me, I'd just like to stay updated on that. So, because it is a new budget process and it looks like the time is going to be crunched, I would just like to look at your POPs as you develop those and as they're available to the public.
Yes, we'll make sure that.
Yeah, if
Noted.
that's
Yeah.
something that you can share through the administrator that she can disseminate to the committee members.
Yeah, so the plan is once we get our finalization from the governor's office on which POPs to be working with through the agency and through the different committees that we represent on and stakeholders on our POPs.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy Hirsch, Administrator. I just had one comment question maybe for the committee. I did have an email from the Assistant to the Area Director out of Eastern Oregon relating back to the strategic investments, and it sounds like they have, they're very close to completing their communication trailers, and he offered to come back to the committee in June and kind of show and tell those in pictures at a minimum. If you're interested in that, I'll make that happen.
I would be very interested in that. See some thumbs up and head nods. So yes, please.
Great, thanks.
And on that note, with strategic investments, it's good to see the funds being utilized. And perhaps a comment for Tracy for the next meeting is a thorough update on where we're at with some of those, with implementation on the ground. The committee considers the amount and the projects, and ultimately I'm a person who likes to see things done on the ground and how the money's being spent. I'm not worried as much about the dollars as much as just seeing good work getting done ahead of this fire season. So any updates that we can provide, even just progress updates, would be appreciated. And in addition to some actual details on the trailers. Okay, Mike, I look to you, or Bill, you have covered everything in the,
I believe you're moving on to 9. So
we can do that.
yes,
All right.
I think we're good unless there's additional questions. Maybe just, again, for the record, Mike Shaw, on the budget and the POPs, it's a new process, just to add clarity. And this isn't unique to ODF. Pretty much any agency that has a board or a commission is in this same boat, and it's kind of jamming up the timelines that we're accustomed to. On the back end, I believe the intent is so that when we submit an agency request budget, what comes out the other end has already been vetted by the governor's office and mirrors what comes out the other end. And so it's some work on the upfront end with the governor's office, ideally to be efficient. But for those of us in the status of ODF, that has created a little bit of a jam with stakeholders who want to be a part of the POP development and agency prioritization for new asks. And so we're trying to thread the needle with that, and looking forward to when we can get some information back from the governor's office so that we can work with our partners. So hopefully on the back end, it's a real positive bit. For right now, it's we're kind of stuck in a little bit of a rock in a hard place scenario with being able to communicate and plan. So
Understood, and I appreciate the concept.
Yeah.
Misery loves company. Good to know that other agencies and boards and committees are also becoming familiar with the new process. So, okay, yeah, let's move to agenda item number 9, Protection Division report. Look to Mr. Klein.
I'm going to move over. Chair Geraltz and members of the committee, I wish to address you, not speak to your shoulder. So hence I will physically move, and hopefully the folks on the online can still see me as well. So thank you for the opportunity to address you. I missed, so obviously relatively new to this position. For the record, being relatively new, Chris Klein, interim Chief of Protection for the Department of Forestry. So I've been in this for 3 months. I missed your last meeting. Did not want to, but I had a pre-planned trip with my wife to celebrate our 30th anniversary, and it took higher priority. So that's where I was last time, and I think I prioritized appropriately. We had a good time, but it's good to be here with you. I did look through your notes. I wanted to be prepared, and so the topics that I have on item 9 are BLM agreement, geoboard, severity, resource, and planning efforts there. It looks like Mr. Graham gave you guys a good update on the BLM process last time. A little update on that. Obviously, one thing is we are 2 months further into that process. So we have 4 months remaining in the 5-year contract on the WOOP, the Western Oregon Operating Plan. The sides have met, we're talking, and by sides, I mean the BLM, Department of Forestry, and I think worth noting, Coos Forest Patrol and Douglas Forest Patrol, right? As they are their own unique entities within the WOOP as well as signatures to the master agreement. And I think that's, that's very important that we maintain that, that distinction. And they, it's my opinion that they bring a great value as separate entities to that process. So we have all met. We met, I think it was last week, and we had our after action review per the agreement. It went okay. There's work to be done. I think, both sides, we are talking amiable discussion. There are some differing viewpoints amongst that agreement, and I have a complete faith that all entities will be able to work through that process. Currently, Department of Forestry, we have submitted our, what we hope to see in the update. Along with DFPA and CFPA, we have submitted to BLM, and it is currently sitting back in the Washington office for approval. If I'm understanding it correctly, their representatives waiting to hear back, and then we can move forward with a written agreement. Hopefully that Cal and Mr. Bashu can have signed, State Forester Mukamoto and Barry Bashu can have signed by the end of June, so we can enter this next fire season. I am completely considering the people that are in support of it, right? The commissioners, local legislators, congressional delegation. I think it will happen. But and my hope is to, as I sit in this role for however long I sit in this role, to help bring field experience and perhaps diplomacy skills that I've learned as an incident commander to that process. I mean, it's very important, obviously, right? It's been in effect well over 100 years, and it needs to stay in effect, by my opinion. So hopefully we can just strengthen that relationship into the future. Got off my notes. I think that's what I had for that. GeoBoard update. So as far as GeoBoard update, I have been a co-chair on the GeoBoard ever since I stepped down as an incident commander from our incident management teams, having stepped into this new role. I can't personally cover that duty, so Matt Howard has stepped in behind me, so he's co-chair of the GeoBoard along with Ron Graham. And I think they're doing good work there. I'm still keeping a pulse on what's happening. And Blake, if I miss anything, please add. But moving forward, just to continue a continuity and support of our IMTs, our GeoBoard is working on purposeful successional management process and trying to, see around the corner as what our needs are for bench strength and to maintain the viability of those incident management teams. It's absolutely my belief that our teams not only need to remain viable to the level they are, but it's also my vision that potentially long-term increase the strength and the depth of those teams. I see a very real need in the future. I think all organizations, the workforce is shrinking, the available people are shrinking, and that's happening in the federal system as well. And those regional incident management teams are shrinking, and I think that is just glaring to me, being my lifelong profession in fire, that we need to watching that happen and seeing how the fires are changing on the landscape and seeing how the climate is changing. That we need to be proactive and strengthen and broaden the depth of our incident management teams for the sake of not only the landowners but all Oregonians. And so, as long as I'm sitting in this chair, that is something that's going to be at the forefront of my thought process. And I think it's just, I think important for you guys to be aware of the work that's going on there and the reasons behind that work. I'll pause there. I actually meant to pause after the first bullet point as well and see if you guys had any questions on those topics or online. And if not, then we'll probably move forward to Sarah. Are you going to give us a severity resource update? Yeah, we are doubled. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, maybe just one thing back on the BLM, for the record, Mike Shaw. I think it's important to note, and I think most folks are tracking, one of the big challenges with the BLM and the current WOOP agreement is the cost of fire protection. And I think if we go back to the current legislation of House Bill 4133, probably one of the largest victories that would be seen out of 4133 is the recognition that headquarter services budget and what is provided through Salem and what is provided through the administrative prorate to public landowners currently that is picked up currently by the general fund on the behalf of private landowners, that those would be general fund costs, which would reduce the cost to the BLM as well as other public landowners, state forest land. That's a really significant portion. Fish and Wildlife, state parks, county-owned timberland. I think a recognition of the services provided at the statewide level and not partitioning those out at the district base level rate is a really strong point and will be beneficial in continuing that long-standing relationship with the BLM. If I go back over the past couple of years, sitting in the division chief role, that was arguably one of the most contentious topics with the BLM is the cost of fire protection at the base level budget. So just for awareness, I think the current legislation would be a significant move forward.
Having been involved with that process over the past 7 years, somewhat in the shadows, I would agree with your statement, only insofar that it'll take away one of their talking points. There will, the culture and the perspectives between the federal firefighting arm and the state exist, and there will be other fun things to discuss as those agreements continue to move and evolve. I have steadfast support for ODF and what you guys continue to stand your ground on some of the asks, and please continue that. And there are other pressure points being added to the BLM elsewhere, so that the recognition that ODF is one of the premier firefighting agencies in the nation is recognized nationally and continues to provide some pressure on the BLM to not leave the agreement. So thank you, good luck, and that is one of the reasons to be optimistic or to have some optimism for House Bill 4133 is to take away arguably their largest sticking point.
Thank you for the encouraging words. Thank you, Mr. Shaw, for adding that on. Sarah?
Good morning, Chair Garland, members of the board. My name is Sarah Prout, and I serve as the State Aviation Coordinator for the Protection Division. So today I'm going to start with a brief severity plan update, and then we'll then transition to an update on the potential acquisition of the new multi-mission aircraft and hangar. So starting with severity, we're experiencing a very high procurement workload this season. Last year was the final season for the agency's exclusive use large air tanker, our fixed wing detection aircraft in Klamath Falls and LeGrand, and single engine air tankers in LeGrand and Prineville, and our Type 3 helicopter. So we have been very busy with procurements this fall and winter. In addition to the procurement workload, we've also encountered some unusual changes within the single engine air tanker industry. We're seeing a very high level of sell-off of those aircraft, both nationally and internationally, which we expect will cause some potential impacts to the program. Impacts are expected to be increased costs or potential non-renewal of some of the existing contracts that we hold. In addition to that, we are expecting costs to increase across the board. Aircraft are becoming more and more expensive, so we do expect there will be some changes in the suite of aircraft for the 2024 season. I think the biggest one I'd like to mention with this meeting is the large air tanker. We elected as a planning group to solicit for a Type 2 air tanker, which are Q400 type scooper aircraft. They're nimble, They do have a decreased capacity in terms of the load that they can carry, but we expect that it'll be a very good resource, and we hope that it'll help with the budget impacts of increased costs across the board. There aren't a lot of those aircraft nationwide, so there is potential that we could have a failed solicitation, and at that point, the planning group will have an alternate plan to execute if that does happen. In addition to severity, actually, I'll pause there. Is there any questions about the severity program as a whole before I move on to the projects?
Just a question on the single air or single seat vehicles. What is there any theory as to why those are being diminished in the program?
I know that a lot of the aircraft are going overseas, and I think there's just such a high demand across the world for these nimble aircraft that the market is super hot, and a lot of our contractors here locally are just electing to sell. And it's a smart move for them, but it's not so good for ODF.
Right. Okay.
That's what
Thank
we
you.
expect is the cause. Mhm.
Yeah, Eric, this is Chris. I believe I heard that Greece, just as one example, had purchased over 30 of them.
New
Just,
Zealand.
just people see the value, and so it's hard to compete against, a national level purchase.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Can you, in addition just to the market conditions and the supply and demand of those air assets, is there any other background on the increasing in cost? I mean, is it market driven, or is it additional insurance, FAA, are there other reasons for the increase in cost?
We have seen, so there's a few factors. The CPI, the historical CPI the last few years had a big impact to our program, specifically because we do not adjust for CPI every year. So our severity budget is stagnant and has not increased. So every year that we provide price adjustments, more and more of our budget is eaten away due to those increases. In addition, insurance has been harder and harder for and more expensive for companies to get for the firefighting realm. And so we have seen significant, sometimes 100% increases for insurance holders. So yeah, all very, very complex market and expensive to be in for sure.
Any indication from those contractors of, because of the demand, are manufacturers looking to increase capacity for manufacturing?
I mean, I expect they will, but I haven't heard anything specific from contractors on that topic. I expect that the demand will not go down nationwide here in the U.S. Seats are great aircraft, and so I expect that they'll be behind for a long time. And the price, I think the biggest impact that we'll see, we'll likely be able to procure them, but they'll probably be double the cost. So we may have to make an adjustment to the suite to, shift back to helicopters, which is ODF's, bread and butter. So we'll see what we can do. We think that we'll keep the seats over on the east side, and the west side likely will, if we can't replace the seats that we had in Roseburg, we'll likely shift to helicopter.
Chair Gerelts, Mike Shaw. Just for awareness, great point on our severity budget, how that funding comes into the agency is a pop every biennium. And traditionally, CPI has not been a part of that. In this current biennium, we added a CPI inflationary adjustment to our policy option package. That was denied. That's why our current budget is what it has traditionally been. As we prepare for the future, provided that policy option package is something that we can move forward and is supported at the governor's office, we will add in that CPI adjustment again to try and keep our aircraft budget. Although CPI isn't enough to stay with the increases in aircraft, it's better than nothing. So we will continue to do that into the future.
And we've also capped for historical contracts where the annual increase was based on CPI, but we've moved away from that to a flat 2% increase. And then we ask that contractors justify in writing any additional increase on top of that to try to reduce the impact, because I think since 2016, we've probably lost about 1.6 million in inflationary costs to the budget.
Well, unfortunately, we are between a rock and a hard place in terms of not being able, air assets are invaluable. We understand that, and a very important tool, you know, at some point, with costs running out of control, you have to take new perspectives and shift and look for other ways to provide the same level of resource, right? And the hard place is the cost of the assets. The rock is there's no labor to increase on the ground resources to perhaps offset just the loss in air resources. So to put it bluntly, it seems in fire, Oregon's been experiencing this since 2013. The rest of the U.S. is starting to catch up to what we've experienced, and the struggle fest continues. So I appreciate the update. Continue if you have any more, and I'd open it up to any follow-up questions from committee members.
Well, and recognizing all the things that you just mentioned, and I think another tack that we're taking as well is just trying to broaden our relationships with other entities, right? So Washington, Idaho, California, any bordering, you know, Nevada, even though you're out there in a big desert at that point, for that, you know, geographic piece. But anything we can do to try to, you know, just leverage, because everybody's in the same boat, right? So those are things that we're looking at as well. Obviously, there's some nuances to that with the legalities of contractual legalities and crossing state lines, et cetera. But I think those are all things that we're trying to look at to provide a better service.
This is Catherine. When will we know what resources we have available for this fire season under contract?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say my best estimate at this point would be May. We should have the solicitations pretty well wrapped up. The problem with that estimate is if there's a failed solicitation, then that timeline can extend depending on the plan that we implement. So May, I think we'll have the majority of them tied up with a bow to be determined on if there's a failed solicitation. And we do have means to move forward with emergency contracts if we have to. That would reduce the time it would take to do a formal procurement. So we do have options, but it's not a good feeling this year for sure for me specifically sitting in this seat. So just trying to get through the bulk of the workloads and get the resources out there that are needed. So if there's nothing else on severity, I'd love to go to my favorite topic, the multi-mission aircraft.
Please do.
So you mentioned just kind of hearing the impacts of the multi-mission aircraft, of course, was funded by the EFCC, the sensors that we use on the Part Navia. So I do have a quick paragraph that I'd like to read, just impact over the last, since 2020. The MMA has detected 135 fires not previously reported, has conducted 5 operational support missions and 10 mapping missions. A large percentage of detected fires were found within fire danger levels or extreme fire danger levels, meaning fires start and spread rapidly, have erratic behavior, and the potential to become large. In 2022, following the lightning event, the crew detected 21 new fires in a single flight. And in 2023, ODF was one of the first in the nation to test the onboard Starlink antenna, which made it possible for the observers to live stream video of the fire via the internet. So we could do it in real time. They could watch a video of the fire in the air. The demand for the resource continues to grow year after year, and the agency is very proud of the accomplishments and lessons learned to date. So just a little tidbit on how great that resource has been, and it's been such a success story for our unit in particular. So thank you to this group. So an update on where we're at with the potential bonds. And so included in the bonds are $12 million potential dollars for the acquisition of a new platform, multi-mission aircraft. and an additional 2 million that would support building or reconstructing the current hangar we have here in Salem. Of course, we're in the short session right now. And the two items that we're kind of keeping an eye on before we proceed are some language that was in the bond that would have made it impossible to procure the type of aircraft that we needed to procure. The cost would have been much higher with the language that was submitted originally. So we did submit edits to that, and we're hoping that the new language will be approved. And also, the second item is the debt service plan. So general fund, landowner split. So keeping a very close eye on the outcomes of that, at which point the agency will make a decision on whether or not to proceed with the projects. Our tentative plan right now is just planning as if we're going to do it. So we've been working on this, gosh, it seems like the last decade, but we are very prepared and ready to procure the aircraft. We're looking at a Twin Otter, which is a very capable platform that can do pretty much all hazard response, even paracargo, which is pretty cool. So we have a platform pretty much picked out that meets the bond language at the cost of the bond. And at this point, we're really just doing our project planning, making sure that we've identified potential contractors. We have submitted intent to sell bonds during the May sale. If something happens in the short session where we as an agency choose not to proceed, we have until like mid-April to submit our final determination on the sale of the bonds. If we do sell the bonds and we receive the money this summer, we think that we could have the new platform up and running in 2026, which is really exciting. And then the hangar is more of a to be determined based off of the architectural studies submitted by facilities. So don't have a firm timeline on that, but we're thinking likely a retrofit of the current hangar in Salem. 2 million is not a ton to do a whole new construction. So likely a retrofit of our hangar and then building a very simple hangar to host the new platform. So that's where we're at with that. Any questions?
Questions from committee members? Okay. Would love to hear an update on, in relation to Catherine's statement, the status in our June meeting of where things have closed and what the severity program is looking like, as well as an update on the determination of purchase and the outcome of the legislative session relating to the bonds. Thank you.
The Chair Grells, and thank you, Sarah. I just want to throw my staff props. Haven't been my staff for very long, but I've known them for a long time. I've been around the agency, right? And they're doing great work. They're doing good things. And this is all cutting edge. This is exactly where we need to be. We need to not be keeping pace. We need to be leading, tip of the spear in this type of involvement. So I'm very appreciative of their work and very appreciative of the committee's support in this process. Because as you just heard, there have been very positive, measurable outcomes because of your support. So I just want to say thank you. And I think for the finished division update, just to let you folks know too, I wrote down a somewhat sarcastic, it will happen, fire season, those comments earlier will happen. And so we are getting prepared at all levels, fire cache, our severity, equipment, dispatch, et cetera. Also just want to let you folks know, though mentioning fire season will happen, we are currently supporting Texas. If you hadn't heard, we have a strike team of engines from around the state that went down to Texas. I think they got there Sunday night, and they are engaged, and just kind of a watch out, right? Back to some of the comments I made about we need to be seeing around the corner. We need to be building a program for what's ahead of us. Texas now experiencing their worst fire season in their history. And that fire, I can't remember the name of it, but started in February, and I think that's very telling. We are in that same boat, so we're going to work really hard, to try to get ahead of that and stay ahead of that power curve. But, thank you for the opportunity to report out.
Thank you. Look to anything else from ODF or the Protection Division? Any go backs on the administrative? Oh, very good. Okay. That takes us to item number 10, the administrator report. I'll look to the committee administrator to provide her report, please.
All right, Nancy Hirsch, the FCC Administrator, just a few topics here. We had put in the meeting material our schedule of the fire season 23 audits, and would just offer for committee members if you would like to join in any one of those audits. Typically in the past, folks that had interest might start with your association that you're a part of. And we will get you the right information either to be in person, which I will be striving to do for a majority of the audits, to be in the room with the district employees and their leadership. The rest of the folks typically will be doing the audit virtually, and that would also be an option for how you might want to approach. Let's see, I did want to just note, we are expecting and beginning a process to have some executive administrative support changes. And I've assured them that we will not call on them today during the meeting, but as of today, Chris Clausen, if I'm saying that right, yeah, is with us, working with Crystal, and over the long term, looks like that's who will be supporting the committee. And so I want to say welcome, Chris, and thanks always to Crystal as well. We'll see if you're here next meeting or not. Hopefully. Lastly, lots of comments today regarding House Bill 4133, and my comment will be just pretty straightforward and simple to say that if that bill were to pass, there will be a lot of transitional work in implementing and executing a variety of components to that. And I would just say that over the next few months and year, this committee would end up doing a lot more policy work more than in, you might say, the recent years. And I will just say that, if the bill does pass, you will be seeing a lot more communication from me. And I will assure that we'll keep you in the loop as on an ongoing and regular basis. So that's all I have, Brennan.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from committee members before we shift to public?
Nancy, just out of curiosity, any bill that affects an agency in such a large manner usually comes with funding to assist the agency in transferring their implementation of their policy. Does the bill language as it currently sits provide the department any resources as it would transfer, or is the agency expected to transfer to this new system within your current budgetary means? Curiosity as we go into fire season.
I will leave it to the department to address that question.
Copy. Thanks, Nancy. For the record, Mike Shaw. So the agency with a bill like this does a fiscal impact statement. And at this point, the intent of 4133 was to, at least one of the fundamental principal foundational elements was to reduce complexity in the fire funding system. And there will be several changes. And at this point, it's really undetermined whether those are going to reduce complexity or how that's all going to work. And so the agency's fiscal impact statement did not add additional capacity at this time, but we did put some language in there that says, as we understand how to implement this with our existing staffing, there may be a need in the future to add capacity if we find it necessary. So we've done some very hard looking, and implementation would be done with existing staff at this point. And we would be leaning pretty heavily on the EFCC and their help in determining what that would look like.
And I'll add that the bill also does allow for EFCC to expend funds to bring on additional staff for, and that could be temporary or long-term. If it does pass, as I kind of think some futuring that would be needed to help us make the transition. But in terms of long-term, to Mike's point, we'd have to see how it shakes out.
I would just like to note my concern that if the legislation were to pass, that I would like to ask the agency to stay in contact with us about the resources and expertise that you need to implement the bill, and stay in contact with the committee. So as we go into this fire season and you are doing both items, that you are well prepared to tackle both opportunities.
Thank you for that. Appreciate your concern. We too have the same concern and want to make sure that we have a very open and transparent communication. The partnership with this committee has gotten us to this point today over literally decades working together. So look forward to that continued partnership. I think I mentioned that earlier. And as this evolves, if it passes, that partnership, that communication is going to be absolutely critical to our success. And we will for sure do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to agenda item number 11, public comment. And if anyone would like to make a comment, please either use the raise your hand function if you're online, or make a statement in the chat. While I'm allowing people some time to figure out where their mouse is, I will look to the audience that is here in the room to see if there is any public comment. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, see no public comment. Still have a chance. All right, good. So the next quarterly EFCC meeting will be on Tuesday, June 4th. The Board of Forestry meets on Wednesday, June 5th and 6th. So we will meet then. Same time, same place. And I will close the meeting as of 11:18 for today. And thank you all for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.